Hi guys, this session is a continuation of our last video about the scalp. Here we will discuss the blood supply and lymphatic drainage of scalp. First we will move on to the arterial supply. Scalp has got a rich blood supply. It is mainly from two branches, that is external carotid artery and ophthalmic artery. We know that ophthalmic artery is a branch of internal carotid artery. These two systems, that is external and internal carotid arteries, will anastomose over the temple. You can see this is the region of temple. It is here where external carotid artery and internal carotid artery will join. First, we will study the branches of ophthalmic artery. There are two branches of ophthalmic artery which is supplying the entire scalp. They are supratrochlear and supraorbital arteries. Supratrochlear and supraorbital artery is a branch of ophthalmic artery. Within the orbit, they will branch from the ophthalmic artery. From there, it will move on to forehead. Then, it will supply the scalp till the vertex of the head. In this picture, you can see this point. This is the vertex of the head. So, the supratrochlear and supraorbital arteries will supply the scalp from the forehead till the vertex of the head. Here you can see the supratrochlear and supraorbital arteries from the forehead till the vertex of the head. Here this is the supraorbital and this is the supratrochlear. You can see they are supplying till the vertex of the head. So once again, I want to remember you that ophthalmic artery is a branch of internal carotid artery. Now we can move on to the branches of external carotid artery. From external carotid artery, there are three branches that is mainly supplying the scalp. They are posterior auricular, occipital artery and superficial temporal artery. The external carotid artery supplies the largest part of scalp, that is mainly the lateral and posterior aspects of scalp. First, we will discuss about the posterior auricular artery. It arises from the posterior aspect of external carotid artery. It is the smallest branch of external carotid artery. And also, it supplies an area of scalp that is posterior to the ear. In this figure, you can see this is the posterior auricular artery. You can see the markings here. This is the posterior auricular artery. As the name suggests, it is going posterior to the ear. So, this artery is supplying an area of scalp that is posterior to the ear. Once again, I have to tell you that posterior auricular artery is a branch of external carotid artery. Next is occipital artery. Like posterior auricular, it also arises from the posterior part of external carotid artery. It supplies a large part of posterior part of scalp. Here also you can see the similarity that the name itself, the name of the artery itself is suggesting the area it is supplying. Occipital artery, you know where is the occipital bone? It is in the posterior aspect. So this artery is supplying the posterior aspect of scalp. You can see in this figure, this is the occipital artery. Here it is moving on to the posterior aspect of scalp, that is near the occipital bone. Here also you can see the occipital artery. Next branch that is supplying the scalp is superficial temporal artery. It is the terminal branch of external carotid artery. In an area anterior to ear, it divides into an anterior and posterior part. Here in this figure you can see the superficial temporal artery. Anterior to ear, it divides into anterior and posterior part. It supplies almost the entire lateral aspect of scalp. Superficial temporal artery. It supplies the entire lateral aspect of scalp. By this we are finished with the arterial supply. So the arterial supply is mainly from external carotid artery and also ophthalmic artery, which is a part of internal carotid artery. Now we can move on to the venous drainage. Before telling the venous drainage, I have to mention one thing, that is, according to the region we can divide the arteries. That is, in front of auricle, this is the auricle, and behind the auricle. In front of the auricle we have supratrochlear, supraorbital and superficial temporal. Likewise, behind the auricle we have posterior auricular artery and occipital artery. Next is the venous drainage. The veins of the scalp accompany the arteries and have similar names. First, we will discuss the supratrochlear and supraorbital veins. This supratrochlear and supraorbital veins unite at the medial angle of eye. You can see this is the supraorbital, this is the supratrochlear. They unite at the medial angle of eye, forming the angular vein. This is the angular vein. It forms the angular vein and continues down as the facial vein. It is continuing as the facial vein. Okay, so supraorbital and supratrochlear joins at the medial angle of eye and forms the angular vein, which continues down as the facial vein. This supratrochlear and supraorbital drains the anterior part of scalp from superciliary arches to the vertex of the head. So these two veins are draining the area of scalp from arches, superciliary arches, till the vertex of the head. So we are done with the supratrochlear and supraorbital veins. Next we will move on to the superficial temporal vein. Like the arteries, it is also supplying the lateral area of scalp. From this figure you can see the superficial temporal vein. Here it is. It is supplying the lateral area of scalp. Superficial temporal vein joins the maxillary vein to form the retromandibular vein. You can see in the figure that superficial temporal joins with the maxillary vein. This is the maxillary vein, this small thing. It forms the retromandibular vein. Okay. And also superficial temporal is supplying the lateral area of scalp. Next is the retromandibular vein divides into an anterior division and also a posterior division. Okay. This anterior division, this is the anterior division. It joins with the facial vein. Joins with the facial vein to form common facial vein, which drains into internal jugular vein. So the anterior division of retromandibular vein joins with facial vein to form the internal jugular vein. At the same time, the posterior division joins with the, sorry, there is some problem with the mouse, okay. So this posterior division of retromandibular vein joins with the posterior auricular vein to form the external jugular vein. This is the external jugular vein which drains into the subclavian vein. Okay, so we are done with the divisions of divisions of retromandibular vein. Next is the posterior auricular vein. This posterior auricular vein, like the arteries, it drains the scalp posterior to ear. Posterior to ear, it is drained by the posterior auricular vein. You can see this vein is going towards this side. Okay. Next and the last one is the occipital vein. This occipital vein drains the posterior aspect of scalp from vertex to external occipital protuberance. That is, this is the occipital vein. This is the occipital vein. This is the occipital vein. It drains from vertex till the external occipital protuberance. That is mainly the posterior part. Okay. The posterior part is supplied, it is drained by the occipital vein. So we finished with the venous drainage also. Next is the lymphatic drainage. The anterior part of scalp drains into the preauricular or parotid lymph nodes, which is present on the surface of parotid gland. The posterior part of scalp drains into posterior auricular or mastoid and occipital lymph nodes. Other name for mastoid nodes are retroauricular or posterior auricular nodes. Finally, these mastoid and occipital node, it drains into upper deep cervical lymph nodes. All these things you can clearly see in the picture. Anterior to vertex of it, here is the vertex of it. Anterior to it, it is drained by the preauricular lymph nodes. Okay. Posterior to vertex of nodes, it is by the mastoid nodes and occipital nodes, both of which will finally drains into the upper deep cervical nodes. So we are finished with the blood supply and lymphatic drainage of scalp. If you have any doubts, you can mention in the comment section. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe.